From idea to market, how successful startups build digital products. Hello and welcome. My name is Amir Kutub. And if you don't know me, I am CEO of a software and app development company called Enterprise Monkey. But I have been in the startup space for the last 10 years. I have personally invested in 8 technology startups. Three of them are doing pretty well. Like I would say, three are doing average, and two have not survived, but which is a good average, I would say. But I've also worked with around 82 startups, mentoring them, helping them take off the ground. And then I have launched 67 digital products. So I have had fair share of experiences in this space. And today we are going to talk about how I've taken all of my learnings from the last 10 years, but then working with some of the amazing startups, learning from them, and what are some of the commonalities, what is the process through which they actually take an idea and convert into a commercialized product, but also how some of these successful startups go onto a process to build these digital products. Now, I receive a lot of queries where founders would come to me and say, we want to build an Airbnb for educators, or an app which is similar to Airbnb but for teachers, for different industries. Or they would say and say, I want an Uber for restaurants or something like that. So that's a very common theme. And when you think of Airbnb, what you're generally looking at or what you're thinking of is a fully furnished, finished app, the way Airbnb is at the moment, with all of the experiences, everything built into the application as it stands now. But one thing that they forget is that Airbnb did not actually started like that. Airbnb started like this. This is the snapshot of the very first website of theirs. And if you look at it, what really happened was that you had these three friends who came up with an idea to solve a particular problem. And that problem was that in the San Francisco area, when there were a lot of conferences, hotels were all booked out. So they decided that they're gonna let their apartment, or were going to invite the guest into their apartment and would allow them to stay in their apartment, of course give them breakfast and charge for them to stay. And they did not have a bed, so they actually bought an air mattress. That's why the name air bed. And put it on the floor and said, you can come and stay in our apartment in that air bed, and we are going to charge you some money, but that's going to be much less expensive than what you would charge for hotels. So they came up with the concept and created a very simple website that would allow people to come in here, place the inquiry, and book a website. Once they tested this in the market and they started to get traction, they created a website that looked like this, a very simple listing website where you could go in, enter your area, when did you want to check in and check out, and you would be able to see the list of all of the listings. As you can see, the listing did not look great, and then people would be able to click on it, but this would not actually provide, like, make any connection or any booking, but people would be able to fill in a very simple contact form and say, I'm interested in this property. But at the back end, they were doing all of the work in making sure, ringing the apartment saying, we have got a booking, are you ready for it, and so on. And then ultimately, now where they are at is where they've got a fully furnished app, a working prototype and working model, and so on. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because when we get a lot of startup inquiries, or I meet with a lot of founders, they have this amazing idea and they want to develop this absolutely amazing product. But one thing they forget in the whole equation is that it's actually not about what you want for your customers, it's about what your customers want. And when you look at the references of something like Airbnb, you look at the product, but you don't look at the philosophy that went beyond developing it. Why did they start from something as simple as that? And it's not just Airbnb. I'm going to give you so many examples of successful companies that have followed the same methodology and same principle. I'm going to uncover that principle, how that works, and why it is prudent for anyone who's trying to build a product, whether you are a startup, you are an SME, or you're a large organization. If you want to build a product, it's extremely essential that you follow that methodology and that philosophy. So we are going to talk about that. Talking about the product, there were two Steves that actually changed my life. The first one that you see in this picture is Steve Wozniak. We organized Pivot Summit here in Geelong, and we invited Steve Wozniak to be a keynote speaker. And I had an opportunity to actually have some deeper conversation with him. And during that conversation, one thing that he very clearly said, and that sort of changed my approach or my philosophy towards startup, is he said that everything, like whenever you start something, always start by building something extremely small, then taking the customer feedback, taking the market feedback, and then building it from there. So now you might think that you've got this amazing idea and you would just go ahead and implement it, but that's not the right way. So every product that we have developed, he said that Apple did not launch iPhone just like that. Like, I built a computer first. And it was not a fully operational computer, and we went out and tested it in the market, got the feedback, developed the first Mac, second Mac, and so on. So what you see as an end product is not the first iteration. So it's extremely important for a company or a product to go through that journey of iterations, because ultimately it's the market and the customers who define that. The second Steve that changed my life is probably less known, but very famous in the startup world. This person is Steve Blank. Again, we invited him to one of the Australian Sports Technologies Network conference. I had a pleasure to sort of pick him up from the airport, spend a few days with him, drop him off. And one of the golden nuggets that he gave me was that extremely important for you to, whenever you're thinking of building a product or building a venture or building a company, is thinking about what is the problem that you are trying to solve, and then solving the most minimal basic problem and then testing it with your customers. So, how we approach the product, and how a lot of founders come to me who would approach the product would be say, oh, I've got this absolutely amazing idea. We want to develop this big product that will have so many features and it's just going to crush everything. That is the wrong approach. And Steve Blank has actually taught a huge amount of founders, and some of the big companies that you see have been students of Steve Blank. And the methodology and the philosophy that he operates on is called Lean Startup Methodology. So Steve Blank is actually known as the founder of Lean Startup Methodology. And Lean Startup Methodology talks about mainly three things. First is making sure that you are iterating fast. So rather than developing a product or spending 2 years in developing a product, you have to launch the first version of product very quickly. Secondly, you have to test that in the market and be able to iterate fast to learn from the feedback of your customers and then change that product. The second thing that Lean Startup Methodology focuses on is reducing the waste. So not building anything that is not solving the big immediate problem of your customers. So if you have identified a very clear problem, then focus on solving that particular problem rather than thinking of, okay, I'm going to build all of these big features that's going to just make my product look amazing. Now, that's not what you are building it for. You are building it to solve one particular problem. So nailing down that problem and making sure that you are not wasting your energy or resources in building anything else. That's extremely important. And third, as I said, is customer input. Building the product with your customers, not for your customers. So don't think that, okay, I'm going to build a customer and then people would come and build a product and customer would come and follow it. That's not going to happen. The key is to build the product with your customers. Now, how to build the product with your customers, that's something that we are going to talk about a bit more in detail. One of the most important principles of Lean Startup Methodology is the principle of build, measure, learn. So big trap that again I see a lot of product builders and founders going into is they come up with these amazing specs of the product and say, okay, we are going to build, and then launch it in the market. And once you launch it in the market, the product fails, product falls down. The reason it falls down is because, first of all, you have not done enough market research, you have not taken enough customer feedback, you have not done enough measurement, and you have come up with some hypothesis in your mind and you're thinking it's going to work, it's going to solve all of the problems, but ultimately customer did not needed that. So you have wasted a whole lot of time and energy by developing a product that nobody needs or nobody wants. And that's something that we are going to change today. When you're looking at a startup, there are 5 key questions that you should ask. One, and that's something that if someone pitches to me as a startup, a founder, these are the 5 questions that I ask. But these are very extremely important questions. The first question is, what is the problem that you are trying to solve? And in response, I would generally get, oh, we are trying to build this amazing software that would do this, or amazing app, or amazing product, or whatever it is. No, 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 no. What is the problem that you are trying to solve? What exactly is the problem? What is the pain point? What is the challenge that you are trying to solve? So when I talk about problem, people talk about solutions. What you need to understand and define is what is the exact problem pain point that you should be articulate very well and say, okay, this is the problem that I'm trying to solve. Looking at the Airbnb example, the problem that they were trying to solve over there was that people who wanted to attend the conference could not find hotels to stay in. They needed some place to stay in. That was a problem for the people, and that was a very well clearly defined problem. The second question to ask over there is, who is the customer? Who are you actually building it for? Now, a lot of people would say, oh, half of the population is my customer, all of the males are my customer, every business professional is my customer, every woman is my customer, or every 40 to 45 women is my customer. And that's not good enough as well. That might be your plan, that you would extend the product to everyone. But what you have to find, and I think this diagram would actually help you explain, is something which we call as early evangelist or early adopters. These are the people who have got that highest need of solving that problem, who have got the highest pain point with regards to your problem. So you really have to determine and identify by defining not just demographics but psychographics, but also understanding their behavioral characteristics, exactly who are the type of people, really pinpointing and saying, okay, this is the person that I'm trying to target, or this is the type of business, exact type of business that I'm trying to target. This is the person, as soon as I'm going to go and say I've got a solution to your problem, they are going to buy it. That's what we call as early evangelists. Then after that, you have got your serviceable, obtainable market, which we call as SOM. These are the people that you're trying to reach, that the wider audience. Then you have got your serviceable available market, which is a much wider audience, and then the total addressable market, which is where your all of the males in Australia or all of the females 40 to 45 comes in. But that comes at the later stage. That comes at the end stage. Of course, you need to be looking at that bigger picture as well. But to be able to approach it properly, you need to define who are going to be your early adopters and who are you going to be a SOM. I call them as core market as well. Who is going to be your core customers and who are going to be your early adopters? Because you can't find them, then you won't be able to kick off your product. No matter how much money you spend in marketing, how much money you spend on your product, you can spend millions on marketing, millions on product. If you don't have a very clearly defined early evangelist, early adopter, and a very clearly defined core market, your product won't go there. And I have seen big companies, large companies releasing the products and failing just because of that. The next question is, who are your competitors? Again, one of the answers that I hear is everyone is my competitor, or no one is my competitor. It's a unique product. But essentially what you have to understand is you've got direct competitors and indirect competitors. So really understanding who are your direct competitors, and if you don't have any direct competitors, who are your indirect competitors? Now, if you say, oh, I've got this new application on the phone and I really don't have any competitors. But the thing is, if a person is spending time on your app, then you are taking them away from something else. For example, when TikTok was launched, who was their competitor? Well, before TikTok, people were spending time on YouTube. If who was the competitor for YouTube? Before YouTube, people were spending time on TV or on or watching on the movies. So even if you are not competing with someone for money, you are competing with someone for the time or the efforts. Because again, with the apps, there are, on an average, a person would have, say, 43 apps on their phone. Now, you are asking them to download your app, which means they have to delete some applications, right? Or not use those applications. So they are your competitors. understand who your competitors, and then how are you better than your competitors? What is your unique value proposition? Just saying that we'll be cheaper than our competitors, like you are starting from the scratch. You have got these big players sitting with huge amount of budget from investors. They can waste their money on it. Now you are saying that you would be able to compete with them just on the basis of the price is not enough. Is your product better, faster, providing a much better solution than your competitors? And if you say you're competing on the price, what is it that's unique in your product that is going to actually help you reduce the price or cut the cost in there? Because once you go into that price competition range, that's not a good competition to go into, and that has drawn a lot of businesses out. Like they've pushed a lot of businesses out completely just because they were trying to compete on the price itself. And finally, how are you going to make money? This is the one that I would say is the least one to care about. If you have got a very clear problem to solve, if you think you are solving a big problem, and if you've got a very clear solution out of that, then the money can take care of itself. But you don't need to define one, but you need to have some thoughts about how are you ultimately going to make money, because that's what investors care about, investors worry about. But having a monetization strategy is important. But as I said, if you are not able to define it at this moment, that's fine. As long as you are solving a very clear problem and you are able to answer the 4 other questions, you should be all right. Okay, so we talked about Airbnb had a very clear problem. People were not able to get the beds. Who were the customers? The customers were the people who were attending the conference, very well defined. Now, who were the competitors? Hotels were the competitors. How were they better than the competitors? Because they were, of course, cheaper than the competitors, but hotels were full. Hotels had limited space. Airbnb did not have limited space because there are 5 hotels in a city or 6, but there are hundreds of apartments in a city. So that's was their main value proposition over there. And then ultimately, how were they making money? They were making money on the commission that they were charging when people were booking for Airbnb. So a very clear, nice way of answering those 5 questions using the Airbnb case study. Now, this is something which we are not going to talk about in detail, but I would highly encourage you to look at is if you are thinking of developing a product which is going to be a startup or a venture in itself, look at business model canvas. So Steve Blank's student, Alexander Osterwalder, developed business model canvas. Now, generally, when you are developing a business, you come up with a big, huge business plan. With startups, you don't need to do that. You can just do it simply on a 1-page, simple business model canvas. There are 9 questions that you have to answer as a part of that. And again, that's a big session in itself. But I would highly encourage you to do that, because that's going to be your very first step if you are going to build a venture out of your product. Larger companies do it. I've been to the office of some of the biggest companies, and they still have this big printed business model canvas out there, and you have like all of those sticky notes and everything in there. So it's not just people starting out. Like startups live and breathe this business model canvas and put their hypothesis in there. So highly encourage you to look at it as you are starting on the journey. Now, the question is, how do you actually understand your customer? Now, this process is called as customer discovery, and there are 2 parts of customer discovery. The first part is problem validation, and the second part is solution validation. Because right now you're thinking there is a problem, but you don't know whether there's a problem or not. You're just imagining. You have it's just a hypothesis that you think, okay, there's a big problem that I'm going to solve. But are your customers actually saying that that's a problem? That's something that we have to figure out. Then you are thinking, okay, I've got a solution in my mind, but is that solution right or not? Is something that we have to test in the market as well. How do we do that? The first one is with problem validation is something that you can do with the help of online surveys for customer discovery. So what you can do is you can create a survey where you can actually put questions around, is this a problem? How big is it a problem? What are the challenges that you are facing, and so on. So suppose you're thinking of an app that would allow people to book their car service in where someone would be able to come in, pick up their car, take it for the service, and bring it back. Suppose that's a problem that you are trying to solve. Now, the question that you would ask in the survey would be, how much time, how many years do you get your car service done? How much time do you waste? Is it an inconvenience for you to drop the car off and so on? Do you get a loan car or not? And if there's a solution where someone can pick up the car, would you be willing to do that? How much would you be willing to pay for it, and so on? But you need to make sure that that survey is not very detailed. Like a person should be able to fill it in 5 to 10 minutes. The second is to distribute that survey, and I would say that distribute that survey to at least 50 potential customers, especially if you're targeting B2C. If you're targeting B2B, and if you are developing a product for a particular industry, then even like up between 10 to 20 is fine. Now, a lot of people ask me how to actually find those customers. The question is, if you're not able to find customers to fill in the survey, how would you find the customers to try and use your digital product? If someone doesn't even have a need or a problem that's big enough that you're solving, that they're not even willing to give you a time to fill in a 5 minutes or 10 minute survey, then that tells you that either you have not identified the right target customers, or your problem is not big enough. So go and identify those people. There are few ways you can identify those people. You can join different Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, where you can find those people. You can look up for these people on LinkedIn, reach out to them through LinkedIn, tell them that you are building this product and that's what you want to do. And then once you get the feedback back, analyze that feedback and see what is the feedback that you have received. Have people said, yes, that's a big problem? How big is that problem? Are people willing to pay for you to be able to solve that problem? The second thing that I would highly recommend is to do face-to-face interviews. Again, with your potential customers, select 3 to 5 individuals who fit your target user profile. Ask them for a coffee catch-up, meet with them, have a very clear defined script or type of question that you want to ask them. And of course, they are going to be more subjective questions, more detailed questions. And Steve Blank used to say is that if you want to understand how customers are feeling, when you define the problem and you define the solution, you need to be able to look into their people and see their people dilate. You need to be able to see that people are really happy or excited with the idea. And that's why I highly recommend doing these person face to face, not over Zoom. You can do it over the Zoom because the world is operating in that matter. But if you are able to meet with few people, like have them in front of you, look into their eyes, and then ask the question, then that would be the best. Again, get insights from there and validate the assumption that you are making were right or not. Now, I've got some ChatGPT prompts that would allow you to create these surveys and create these questions for face-to-face interviews by just entering your problem and solution. If you are interested in those ChatGPT prompts, write prompts, PROMPTS, in the comment section, and I would be happy to send it to you. These are like very highly detailed prompts that will actually provide you with the fully furnished survey that you can send to your customers. As I said, if you are interested, you can type prompts, PROMPTS, and I'll be happy to send it to you. The second level of customer discovery is solution validation. This is where you have validated the problem. You know the problem exists. Now you're testing and validating whether there is whether the solution that you are proposing is right or not. And to do that, the best way is to develop a landing page. Landing page is basically a simple page of website, which is just one page website that you can put up. Now you can use so many tools out there that you can use. You can build a landing page on Wix or Webflow. You can do it on WordPress, but you can do a very simple landing page on something like ClickFunnels as well. The key to develop a landing page is to make sure that you are putting your problem up at the top, or putting your main value proposition up at the top. And in that landing page, what you are asking for is asking for people to sign up or book now and provide you their details. So what I'm doing over here is I'm not developing the actual product, but I'm what I'm doing is I'm putting a promise of the product and testing that if people are coming onto this landing page and they are seeing that there's a solution, how many people would be willing to take that step. I'll give you an example. Dropbox, even before developing the product, what they did was they created a very simple landing page. They recorded a video, and that landing page said, we are going to release this software, or we are working on this piece of software that will help you put your files on cloud, manage it easily. If you are interested, put your email address. So no investment, a very simple message, created a video, created a very simple landing page, the one that you are seeing on the right over here, and said, if you are interested, let's talk. If you are interested, put your email address in. And that's where there were a lot of people who signed up, they joined the waitlist, and that's how Dropbox was launched, by validating the solution. Elon Musk, before launching the Cybertruck, he created a landing page, created an image of Cybertruck, did not put up the factory, did not create the materials or whatever, because he did not have the finance to be able to do it. So Elon Musk created a landing page and he said, I'm going to create a Cybertruck in 2 years or 3 years time. Join the waiting list. To join the waiting list, you have to pay, I think it was, I don't remember, $500 or $5,000, but pay the money and then you'll be the first to get the Cybertruck. He got 10,000 people who were interested in it, who joined it, took that data to the banks and said, I've got 10,000 people who have already paid me their money, which means they are going to be paying whatever, 80,000, 100,000. That guarantees my return on investment. Now I want finance to build the trucks. So a lot of people, when they come to investors and they say, oh, we have got this amazing idea, but when we ask if you've done any customer discovery, no, we are going to look at it. But if you have developed a landing page, even if you have not developed a product, and you go to your customers and get interest from them, then the promise is that ultimately, when you're going to build the product, you have validated that the solution that you are looking to develop is going to be really effective. So landing page is that one powerful product that you can build very easily around any startup idea at all. You give me any startup idea, I can tell you exactly what you can build as a landing page, and you can put the details over there, get the people to sign up, either to join the wait list or say that the product is coming, let them enter their details. But that allows you to test whether people are willing to do that or not. Sometimes you can even ask people for money and say, pay me $100 or $500 if you want to have the first right to use the product. Now, once you have created the landing page, how would you test it? You would test it by using Meta ads or LinkedIn ads, targeting your customer persona, and then putting them on through Meta ads and LinkedIn ads and directing that traffic towards your landing page. And then you will test it and say, I spent $100. I got 1,000 people who came on the landing page. 50 people actually subscribed. So that would give you your conversion rate, but that will tell you how many people who actually saw the ad, came into the landing page, were able to actually understand your solution and were interested in your solution. That's why having that landing page and doing this customer discovery is extremely important. And that's where this concept of minimum viable product comes in. So what is an MVP? MVP is a concept of developing a product that is going to solve the most minimum basic problem, and but solve it really well. So a lot of people mistake MVP for a very raw product or something that you would develop small. So there are two types of people over here with MVP. So you have got one set of people who think of MVP as the first version of the product. So they spend a whole lot of time and spend 2 years in developing the MVP itself. Then you've got some people who think, okay, MVP is just a very bad looking product that you would put out to the market. Both are wrong. MVP is basically the simplest version of product with just enough features to attract early adopters, customers, and then validate whether a product idea would work or not. So thinking of those early evangelists that I showed you in that diagram, those early adopters who have got the biggest problem, those people who are coming to attend that conference and need a bed, thinking of them and saying, how can you solve that problem? Do you need all of the fancy features to solve that problem, or do you need a just simple page where they can look at the photo of the apartment and say, yes, I'm interested or not? And that's what MVP is all about. So the lean startup methodology is actually banks upon you developing a minimum viable product and putting it out into the market. What it allows you to do is, first of all, allows you to reduce the risk. You are not spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can do a minimum viable product in as low as whatever $3,000 to $4,000, can go up to $50,000, like depending on industry, but between $5,000 and like $200,000 you can do most of the MVPs. You can put it out in the market, test it early with the customers, and then if you have done that and you go to an investor, your chances of getting investment become really high. So a pre-MVP startup, an average valuation would be say $500,000, but a post MVP startup, the valuation just doubles and goes up to 1 million to 2 million based on where you are at on your journey. So the thing is that if you are able to develop some level of MVP and test it with your customers, it de-risks, it reduces a lot of risk because you're not spending a lot of that money. You're able to test the market as well, but most importantly, you're able to get the feedback from the customers and then evolve the product with the feedback itself. Now, there are multiple types of MVP, but we are going to focus on, say, 4 major types. The first one is concierge MVP, sorry, where you are actually, rather than developing all of the backend processes, it's like a shop front where people, when they look at it from the front end, it looks like, oh, there's an operational thing, but they are putting in a form or placing an order, but you are personally providing all of the services in the backend. So you're actually manually fulfilling the customer needs. For example, what Airbnb founders were doing was they were not they did not build this very extremely complicated system that would connect the apartment owners with the customers. They were taking the booking, downloading into receiving an email, calling the apartment guys, and then managing all of it in the backend. And that's something that you can do very simply with a very simple landing page or a very simple customer facing app that doesn't have all of the smarts built in. I'll give you an example. Zappos is a big online shoe retailer. Now, if you want to start a retail company, how you have to have a warehouse, hold the stock, and then take the photographs and then put it on the website and then market and hope that the customers would find the right fit and right size and would be able to place the order. That's how most of the people approach online retail. The guys at Zappos, what they did was they actually went to different retail shops and took the photographs of the shoes in the retail shops itself, did not purchase the shoes, put it on their website and said, these are the shoes that we are selling, put the prices on there, and then waited for the orders to come. So once the orders started coming in, what they literally used to do is, for example, you get an order of a particular shoe, particular size. They will go shop to shop, retail shops, and say, do you have this? And then purchase the shoe from there, put it in their packaging and send it to their customers. And that's what they did for the first 6 months. They're a big, huge online retailer of shoes at the moment. Now, right now you look at them and say, oh, I want to have a big warehouse and I want to have all of the smarts built in. But the thing is that they tested the concept first and see, they listed all of the shoes and then checked which shoes are going to be sold quickly, what are the sizes and so on. And once they had enough data, they were able to purchase the shoes, have an inventory, and from there sell the shoes and be profitable. The very first minimum viable product is to test that the concept that you are thinking, the hypothesis that you are thinking is actually going to work in the market or not. The second one is Wizard of Oz MVP, which is basically, again, you are simulating an automated process, but you are doing it all manually behind the scenes rather than saying, okay, people think that's all happening automatically. But you are actually doing it manually. I remember a very interesting startup that was launched 5 years ago who said that we are going to connect to your email and book your meetings, like negotiate for your meetings through our AI and book the meetings in your calendar automatically. And what they actually had done was they had placed people in India who would access the emails, manually respond to the emails, and then book in the calendar. But that was not their end game. They wanted to test that if we develop this AI and put it out to customers, would customers would be willing to pay for that or not? So they did it with their first 10,000 customers, had sort of people actually doing it manually. But then once they knew that there was an appetite for that, that's when they started developing an AI solution for it. So that's something, again, very common with a lot of startups. The third one is single feature MVP, where if you think my MVP, my product needs to have 5 features, rather than developing 5 features, you develop one core feature to validate the concept and then develop from there. And then finally, a landing page MVP, where you don't develop anything else apart from a very simple video, a landing page, even sort of show that people can buy the product or subscribe to the product. But once they fill in their details, once they click on subscribe, before going onto the payment page, you show them a message saying, sorry, you are on wait list, or we are booked out, or something like that. But that again tells you whether the customers are going to buy the products or not. And it's not just about product. If you're thinking of any business, starting any business, you can test that concept by developing a very simple landing page. So again, I launched a startup in India called Beyond Grades. And it was about developing courses for students that were not taught in universities. So we came up with 20 different ideas. We were not sure which one's going to work or which one's not. So what we did was we created a course list, 20 different landing pages for 20 courses, and then did a testing where we spent $400 on ad on every landing page and targeted students with that, and saw out of like all of the landing pages that we have targeted, which one is getting the maximum traction. It's very simple as that. If you spend $400 on say 5 different landing pages, and then one is getting a traction of $1,000, second one is 2,000, third one is 3,000, and so on, then you know exactly which one is the winner, which one is the thing that people want more, and then you can take it from there. Any idea, for that matter, can be tested by a simple landing page MVP. It's as simple as that. Now, moving on to the product development process in terms of how a product is actually developed. There's a very proven methodology that even we have adopted in Enterprise Monkey, but that's something that's like widely used in the startup world. We call it as a 6D process: discover, define, design, develop, deploy, and drive. How does that work? So discovery focuses on really defining the problem and identifying the target audience. And it involves 2 main activities. First is creating user personas, and second is mapping out the customer journey. So user personas are basically a visual representation of who your users are, like how you develop the target market and said these are the type of users. It's about personifying the user and saying, okay, this particular person is my user. So Sam is my user. He's whatever 30 to 44 years old male, working as a manager, lives in this particular area. He likes to shop online. He likes driving new cars, and so on. So that's what user persona is. But then it's also about understanding what are their fears, what are their motivation, what are the things that keep them awake, what are the things that get them excited, and really defining exactly who is going to be using your product. Because we as developers, or any developer out there, or even any designer, needs to know who is going to use the application. The application that I would develop for a youngster versus an old person, a businessman versus a tradie, a person in the field versus a person working in the office is going to be completely different. The experience is going to be completely different. You can't develop or go into product development until unless you develop your user persona. Now we have got templates for user personas. You can actually go to canva.com and create your user persona from there. But we have got some templates for user personas that you can use. If you need those templates, type in the comments user persona, and we'll be happy to send you those templates. But ultimately, it's about defining exactly who your users are, and that's the very first step. Now, how do you do that? A proper way of doing that is to really reaching out to your users that or your target customers and understanding who they are, where they come from, what are their feelings, what are their needs, what are their behaviors, what are their fears, and so on. If you're assuming or imagining all of those things, then that's again not good enough. That's not be good for the product. So don't do this exercise just for the sake of doing it, this exercise, but actually go and talk to your users, talk to your customers, understand really who they are, what are their needs, what are their challenges, what are their problems, and then develop a user persona. So as I said, step one, collect the demographic data, get qualitative insights, and then finally build a profile with goals and pain points. This is an example of a user persona, which is very simplified for the slide, but you can actually, as I said, look at the templates of user personas that you can use to develop a product. This is an example of how a user persona could look like. There are multiple ways, but as you can see, there's an age, the job, the marital status, the city, about that person, their objectives, their needs. Are they introvert, extrovert, impatient, or patient, and so on? Their computer competency, mobile competency, and so on. So just and where are they available? What social media channels are they using? Are they a LinkedIn user or a TikTok user, X user, or so on? So that gives you who an understanding of who your users are. The next step is to do customer journey mapping. Once you have understood who your users are, you need to determine how are they going to navigate through your product. What does the customer journey map looks like? This is a visual representation of a customer journey map, and a customer journey sort of goes through different stages. So our customer actually goes through different stages when they interact with your product, starting from awareness, when they first become aware of your product and say, okay, this is something that exists in the market. And it could be through word of mouth, through marketing, through online searches, or through social media, and so on. But that's the first stage. So how does the awareness looks like? The second stage is consideration, when they are considering your product. So they might have two or three different products in mind, or they might not have, they might just have your product in mind, but then they are right now considering whether they want to purchase your product or not. The third one is actually the actual purchase part. And the fourth one is retention, where you're making sure that that person is sticking to your product and continues to use your product as well. Four stages: awareness, consideration, purchase, retention. When you are building your product, you need to keep all of these in mind. If you don't have an amazing onboarding experience, or if you don't have an amazing trial experience, consideration experience, you won't get to the purchase. If you don't have an amazing onboarding experience, you won't get to you won't have the purchase completed. And then needing to understand how customers are continue to use the application, because if you're charging a subscription or whatever, you want to retain people on your product. So how do you ensure that people are retained on your product is extremely important as well. And that's where you identify, okay, what are the activities that they do as a part of customer journey map. Now this is again a big lecture in itself. We won't go into the detail, but if you are going on this journey by yourself, that is something that we highly recommend that you do. If you are working with us or a similar organization, then we actually do it for you or with you for your customers. But very important critical step in building a product. So imagine just starting on a product journey from the scratch, where you have not considered anything and you're coming up with a list of requirements saying, hey, give me the code to build the product, or I want to build this product, versus doing all of that, where you get real understanding of, first of all, who your users are. You have already validated the solution, validated the problem, you know who the users are, and what are the steps that they're going to take in terms of every piece or every part of the journey. Understanding how their motivation goes up and down through this journey, so we can maintain that and make sure that they stay motivated across the journey, is extremely critical. Once you have done the discovery, which is doing the user persona and customer journey mapping, you move on to the define phase. Now, when we are defining a product, there are mainly two things that we are defining. The first one is user stories. So again, rather than writing a big requirements document, it's about defining exactly how your users are going to use your product and defining it in terms of their characteristics. There's a particular format that is used for user stories, which is, as a user, I want a particular goal so that I can be benefited by this. For example, let me see if I've got an example over here. No. Okay, I'll give you an example. So suppose you are building Airbnb. As a user or as a traveler, I want to be able to see all the listings so that I can choose a listing. That is going to be your one feature or one user story. So that's following this format. As a dash, I want to do this so that I get this benefit. Another user story would be, as as a visitor, I want to be able to click on make a booking, select my dates so that I can make a booking or I can stay in that place. That's going to be your second user story. If you are developing that user story from the lister's perspective, it would be, as a property lister, I want to be able to add my property details so that I can receive queries about my listings. So when you start looking at a particular solution, you look at in terms of, okay, how is my user going to use it, and you simply document it in this format. As a this, I want to be able to do this so that I do this, and you do it both. If you've got two-way marketplaces, you do it from both perspective, but you also do it from an admin perspective. So if you are an administrator of Airbnb, if you're the owner of Airbnb, then as an admin, I want to be able to see all of the listings that are on there on my platform so that I can do some analysis. As an admin, I want to be able to see all of the users who are on my platform so that I can do this. As an admin, I want to be able to see all of the bookings. As an admin, I want to be able to change the logo or whatever. So all of those becomes part of your user stories. The next one is talking about how you can create effective user stories. So make sure that they are clear. You have got one clear focus on that. And it very clearly defines the end outcome as well. So for example, there's an example over there. As a shopper, I want to view items in my cart so I can review my choices. So the end outcome is a person being able to review their choices. It's very well defined and very clear. There are some example user stories of a car service app the example that I talked about. As a car owner, I want to book a service online. That's a story, but that's not complete. I would want to extend it. I would say, as a car owner, I want to book a service online so that I don't have to go and get service done. As a user, I want real-time update on my car servicing status so that I can be rest assured that the servicing is being done properly. So who is the user, or who ultimately defining that? What is the goal, and then what is the outcome that they are expecting out of it, needs to be defined in a user story. The next step in there is actually doing the wireframes of the application. So there are two parts. First is doing the user stories, and second is doing the wireframes. Now wireframes is basically rough sketches of your application, basically rough interfaces where you can actually exactly show how the wireframes, like how the application is going to work and look like. I'll actually share my screen and give you an example of a wireframe. So let's wireframe examples. I'm just doing a quick Google search. So if you can see, these are the examples of wireframe over here. I'm not sure if you're able to see it properly, but basically wireframes are rough black and white sketches. This is a more well-defined wireframe that you can see. Here's an example of a wireframe. Another example of wireframe is this. So these are basically done without colors because the focus is not on the colors, but the focus is on the layout, but actually shows and tells how the application is going to look and work like. And then you can connect these wireframes together with the and make them interactive as well. There's a tool which is called Figma.com where you can actually build these wireframes very easily, very simply. The good thing with this tool is even big professionals actually use it to build the wireframes as well. So that's something that I would encourage you to try and use as much as you can. So there are two steps that you do in define journey. First is developing the user stories, and second is doing the wireframes. Now, moving on to the design phase, once you have developed the wireframes, then you move and develop the actual interactive visuals or prototypes of your application. Now, this is where you add colors. It exactly reciprocates how your digital product is going to look and feel like. And again, you can build something like this on Figma, or you can get a designer to actually build it for you. Now, the interesting thing is that when startups come to us, what we advise them is, rather than investing the money in developing the full MVP, we get them to invest in the first 2 or 3 processes that cost between $4,000 to $8,000, allows them to have interactive wireframes or interactive prototypes that they can take to the investors or stakeholders or customers, test the idea with them, raise the funds, get the traction, and once they've got the traction, then come back and build the minimum viable product with us. Talking about building, the step 4 to 6 basically are developing, deploying, and driving. So actually developing the application, deploying it into on a server or an app store, and then driving it. Now, talking about developing the application, so there are mainly 2 forms. There could be more forms, but right now the main consumption methodology of digital products are either through web app or mobile app. So what are web apps? So web apps are basically anything that's accessible on browser. So your software, accounting software, your Salesforce CRM, Zoho CRM, Xero, all of these are basically web applications. Then you've got mobile application that you can access on the phone. Now, the question is, how do you decide whether you start with a web app or mobile app? The thing is that mobile apps are generally 2.5 times more expensive than web apps. And even to have a mobile app, you need either web services or web app of some kind. So the argument is that if your core value proposition is not dependent on the mobile application, then mobile application should always be your second step. Your main step should be a web application. Airbnb did not start as a web application, or not as a mobile application. Facebook did not start as a mobile application. However, Instagram started as a mobile application because Instagram's main value proposition was that they wanted people to be able to upload photos directly from their phone and share it very simply and easily. TikTok started as a mobile application. Again, their value proposition was they wanted people to be able to record videos from the phone and upload it. So that said, if your value proposition is not dependent on it being mobile first, you always start with a web application, test the product as a web app, and then develop mobile app as a second part. Because developing mobile app is expensive, but maintaining mobile app is more expensive than maintaining a web application. Then you have got 2 types of platforms, iOS and Android, and making sure that you are complying with iOS requirements and Android requirements is a challenge in itself. So if you can avoid having a mobile app, always start with a web app and then move on to a mobile app. Talking about mobile apps, there are 2 types of mobile apps as well. You've got native apps and you've got hybrid apps. Now, which one to develop? Again, native apps are more expensive. I would say 1.5 times more expensive than hybrid apps, but more difficult to manage. What is the difference? So native apps are actually built on the core platform or technologies for iOS and Android. So Android says build my apps on Java. There's a particular framework that you have to use. So Android native apps are built on Java. iOS have got Xcode or C hash, and they say, okay, develop my apps on C hash. And when you use native technologies to develop apps, they are called native mobile apps. Whereas hybrid mobile apps are the ones where you use one piece of code, a technology like React Native or Ionic. There are few more technologies. I don't want to go too technical, but you are using one code base and then deploying apps both to Android and iOS through that one code base. Developing hybrid apps is generally cheaper than developing native apps. Some of the big successful apps are actually hybrid in nature as well, like some versions of Facebook, Airbnb, and so on are hybrid in nature. And some of the successful apps are, of course, native in nature as well. How do you differentiate between tools? A very simple rule is, if your app is heavily dependent on the device's GPUs or devices CPUs or devices sensors, then you should be more inclined to use a React app. For example, if you're developing a game that is like gonna use the device's capacities, or it's gonna use accelerometer, gyrometer, and so on, then more likely it's going to be a native application. Similarly, if you want to develop an extensive video editing app which is going to be doing a lot of video editing on the device, you would be more inclined to do a native app. But if you are developing an app that's going to be connected to a web server, which is not heavily dependent on the device capabilities like most of the applications that we have right now, so whether it's a real estate application or a Facebook type application or any application for that matter that does not require huge amount of dependency on the device, then you would go for hybrid mobile application. That's something that we work with our clients and determine during that define phase, to look at what are the features that we are looking to develop, what is the solution, what is the problem that we are looking to develop, and which one is going to be the most preferred option. The next thing is whether to go with a no code versus a low code versus custom development. So what is no code? So there are a lot of platforms that are actually available right now that you can use to develop your web app or mobile app without using any code. Of course, there are restrictions on that platform, and there are IP issues as well, because some of the IP is actually owned by those platforms, but they are good for testing the concept in some stages, and there are some limited functionalities that these no code tools provide. So that could be a good option for development. In some cases, you could have a low code option where you still have to do some coding, some customization, but most of it can be achieved without any code. And then the third is the case where you are actually hiring a developer or getting a developer in to do custom development for your application. Two major factors to look at is what is again the functionality that you are trying to achieve, and what are the implications on the intellectual property of the application that you are developing. Because when you are developing a startup or a commercial thing, then one of the main aims is to make sure that you retain the IP so that you are able to sell that, commercialize that, and so on. But in certain cases, we are not able to retain the IP, then that's going to be a problem. Even if you're working with a developer, make sure that there's a clear IP agreement signed between you and the developer where you are clearly mentioning that you retain the rights of the intellectual property for that particular application. We are reaching towards the end. We've got a couple of slides and then we'll be done. We've got 2 minutes left as well. So in terms of developing or doing custom development, there are two methodologies. One is waterfall and second is agile. Now both have their own advantages and disadvantages. With waterfall, you can define all of the requirements from the start, have a very fixed budget, and then work during that budget. But it's less flexible in nature, because once you have locked in the scope, then the developer is going to be working on that, and it's very difficult to make the changes in between the development, and that does not suit a lot of startups. The second methodology is agile methodology, where you work with the developers rather than defining the whole product from the scratch. You actually define the work in chunks and say, okay, let's develop this feature first, then this feature, and this feature, and this feature. This provides you much more flexibility, allow you to release product faster. But the challenge with that is that controlling and management of budget needs to be taken care of, because sometimes there's no fixed budget and there's no fixed time with that, and that is important to be able to manage as well. So both have got their own pitfalls. Depends on what stage of product building you are at, how very well defined your product is, and then what are your goals, where you want to go with this particular product. And then finally, if you are going towards a custom development path, choosing the right development partner is extremely critical. 4 things that I would look for when I'm choosing the right development partner. First of all is, of course, technical expertise, making sure that they just are not WordPress agencies or WordPress developers who can develop websites on WordPress, or they are not just 1 or 2 people who can develop application on one piece of technology. Because you need a development partner who is technology agnostic, which means who have got a set of resources who can work on different technologies, so that when they are working with you to define the requirements, then they can do the justice in terms of choosing the technology, because choosing the right technology stack is going to be a make or break for your digital product. So making sure that you are choosing the right tech stack is going to be very critical, and that's why having that right developer is pretty important. Second is making sure you have a developer who has understanding of lean startup methodology and startup knowledge, because product development and software development is something that is used in different uh, scenarios. But if a developer or the development team doesn't have understanding of startup and how it operates and the iteration and so on, then it's more likely that they're going to miss on the mark and going to develop or produce a product that customers would not need. Third main important thing, that's a big challenge that I see, and that was one of my major frustration when I developed my first product, when I didn't launch Enterprise Monkey, was when I worked with a developer. He was a very proficient developer, but the communication and collaboration was extremely poor. I used to wait for months and months to get a feedback. There was a lot of emails. I would say something, they would understand something different, produce something else. And that's a big huge problem with development. So making sure that your developer has the right the transparent communication collaboration built in is very critical and very important. And finally, uh, checking whether the portfolio of your developer, making sure that they have worked on different products. One of the mistake that a lot of founders make is they look for developers who have worked in their industry. The reason for that is that you don't need someone who has worked on exactly on that particular product. You want someone who has an understanding of or capacity to be able to work with you to understand your problem, your customer base, and then adapt themselves to their industry. So when you're looking for the experience, don't be swayed by, oh, this person has worked in the real estate industry and my platform is in real estate industry. But look for how many different industries have they worked in, how many different type of products they have worked on, like have they worked on smaller products, larger products, what is the level of flexibility and agility that they have. And that's going to be extremely important. And definitely ask for references and make sure that you are talking to their customers to check how their experience was. Because if it's ultimately with development, it comes to the processes of how, what are the processes that have been put in place to build the product. If you don't have the right processes, if you don't have the right communication protocol, then the end product would not be great. And I see this a lot in my industry. It's a very common thing. Amazing developers, amazing founders, communication gap, process gap, no clear protocols, and that leads to failure all the time. So that's something that to be mindful of. Here's a little bit of homework that I would encourage you to do. First of all, brainstorm, write down any of the ideas that you have, no matter how unrefined or ambitious. Condense your best ideas, do a bit of wireframing, basic sketches, do a landing page, put it out in the market, test it in the market, collect the feedback, and then go from there. That's your 5 steps. You can take a screenshot of this and work on it as you move forward. Finally, if you've got an idea that you want to bring to your life, you can book a discovery call with us. It's a complimentary 30-minute call. We would give you an honest feedback. There are a lot of startups that I talk to where I just tell them how it is and say, this might work, this might not work, or these are the gaps, these are the holes, and so on. Like, no one can exactly tell you this is going to work or not, but we can tell what are the holes, what are the challenges, what are the problems, or what more homework you need to do, or are you ready? What does it looks like? So we can sort of provide you that one-on-one feedback, and people find it really useful to do that. To be able to book that, you can put a comment called discovery, and we'll reach out to you, or you can reach out to us through our website enterprisemonkey.com.au. Reach out to the contact form, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Multiple ways, reach out to us, and we would be happy to help you. Finally, happy to answer any Q&As, any questions that you might have. I am aware that I've already gone over time, but still happy to take a couple of questions as they come through. So feel free to put the questions in the comment sections, and then I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. All right, I've got a question over here. So it says, what comes first, landing page or customer discovery? Okay, so basically, I think I could not clarify it very clearly. Landing page actually forms the part of your customer discovery. Customer discovery, customer discovery is basically got two parts. First is your first is where you actually are checking the problem, where you are saying whether the problem exists or not. The second thing is we are checking whether the solution would work or not. So when you're doing the solution discovery, that's where your landing page comes in. That's where you put the details, uh, create a landing page to test the solution. So landing page is a part of the customer discovery. But when you are developing the minimum viable product, landing page is a type of a minimum viable product that you can put out as well. So it's not essentially just for customer discovery. That's something that you can use as an MVP as well. Next one is, what's the best tool to develop a landing page? As I mentioned, Wix is another one that you can look at is ClickFunnels. If you have some awareness around WordPress, then you can use WordPress as well. But right now there are a lot of AI tools through which you can actually just say build me a landing page for this, and it would allow you to do that. There's a tool called Gamma.ai that's essentially for building presentations, but you can actually build landing pages with the help of Gamma as well. I think Crazy Domains or GoDaddy have launched their own landing page builder that you can use. Do I need to hire a developer, designer to build wireframes? Well, you don't need to hire a designer to build wireframes, but you need to have a team that can help you think about it strategically, because building wireframes, like doing hand sketches, are easy, but thinking about where to place everything is where you would need someone with understanding of UI and UX. So it's always good to have some consultation around that to actually help you make sure that you are uh, building the wireframes in the right way. But if you don't have the budget, or if you want to just start it out, you can do the wireframes yourself. You don't need to do it on Figma, you can do it on paper as well, and start and go from there. Or you can do it on paper, give it to someone on fiverr.com and say convert it into Figma, or give it to a designer and ask them to convert it into Figma, and that's the wireframes that you can have. Cool. All right, I think that's all for the session today. I would remind, if you have any ideas that you want to bring to life, you can book a discovery call with us and talk to us about the idea or the concept in further details. If you've got any questions, feel free to leave the in the comments. I'm not able to address, I can see a lot more comments popping up, but because of the time constraints, I'm not able to address all of the comments, but I'm hoping to address all of them later on in the comment section itself. So apologies if I miss your comments. Thank you so much. You have been an absolutely amazing audience. All the best. Take care. Bye bye.